moderator. Okay, welcome everyone to our October Meaningful Speech Lunch and Learn. We have Rachel Dorsey here with us today. She was a guest with us last year, back in August of 2021. We tried to have her on again last September. I'm so excited that we were able to reschedule you today, Rachel. It looks like somebody has their mic on, so I'm just going to mute a few more people here. For those of you that don't know Rachel, I do talk about her quite a bit, and she has contributed quite a bit to the Meaningful Speech course. But for those of you that don't know her, I'm going to read her bio. So Rachel was born and raised in Gainesville, Florida. She attended the University of Florida, where she graduated summa cum laude with a Bachelor of Arts in Linguistics and a Bachelor of Health Sciences in Communication Sciences and Disorders. She then went on to graduate school at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and she received her master's degree in Communication Sciences and Disorders there. Post-graduation, she worked within a community-based early intervention, preschool, school-aged, and post-secondary services. Sorry, I messed up reading that, but she has worked in all of those environments. She has also seen a variety of clinic-based clients in upstate New York, where she worked for 4 years. Recently, she moved to Arlington, Massachusetts in the summer of 2020, right in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. There, she worked for a small private practice, seeing early childhood through late adolescence until August of 21. And in September of 21, she launched Rachel Dorsey Autistic SLP LLC as her full-time business. So Rachel has been a practicing speech language pathologist for 7 years. She has worked with a variety of neurodivergencies and medical conditions, helping children of all pediatric ages with their speech, language, social connections, self-advocacy, emotional and sensory regulation, feeding, and any myofunctional challenges. And I announced this a little bit in email and last time Rachel was on, but Rachel herself is a Gestalt language processor. So welcome, Rachel. I think we're going to start with that, if you're okay with that.
Yeah. It's always a little tricky to explain how I knew I was a Gestalt language processor. Of course, I didn't have a name for that at the time, or when I didn't have a name for that. So it's a question, how do I know that I'm a Gestalt language processor?
Yes,
Alex.
yes. That
Okay.
is the question.
Okay. I answered this question in the last Lunch and Learn, and since then I've done a lot of self-reflection and thinking and seeing clients and seeing how clients process things, and I see it more as a Gestalt processor, just like cognitively, which I contributed to your course of that module on Gestalt cognitive processing, but I really just see it as Gestalt processing. I find it hard to separate the language and the cognitive part, because I really see them all as being kind of the same sort of thing. But I guess as far as like the typical things that you would look for in a Gestalt language processor, would be, gosh, of course I looked at childhood milestones, and those lined up. I pretty intuitively knew before I had the language to describe it that like clients that demonstrated echolalia, like that I just went along with it and expanded upon it. And I intuitively just knew that it was meaningful. I and now as I'm an adult, and I reflect over things that I process, particularly new words or new sayings, and how those words are understood, and then how I use them. I mean, I see a lot of aspects of Gestalt processing, and that it's always just so hard to explain exactly how I know. I just know I'm also autistic, in case, I mean, I'm sure many people knew. So like I'm autistic. So
Let's talk about that. You were diagnosed later in life, correct? Tell us about your journey to your autism diagnosis.
yeah, I was diagnosed when I was 27. I'm 30 now. It was a very, I was suspecting for ever since I was in graduate school. The teacher introduced the term, the broad autism phenotype, which I don't think that has any legitimacy, but she introduced that term, and I'm like, oh, I'm that's me. That's like people that fall like just outside of being autistic. And then as I worked with clients and did counseling and self-discovery, it became more apparent that I'm autistic, and getting a diagnosis it's hard. It's really hard. I have a lot of empathy for people that are pretty darn sure they're autistic and are seeking a formal diagnosis for either themselves or their children. And if you don't fall within the the stereotypical the DSM-5 criteria that are normed on white boys, then it's just really tricky. So I had two evaluations. One of them was just a local psychologist who, classic story of receiving a string of diagnoses. And this was prior to me like really unmasking. I was still masking at this point. And I also was aware of the things that she was trying to elicit from me. So I wasn't sure whether I should act, like how exactly I should act, because I know that if I do the thing that is like the right way, then I won't get the diagnosis. So yeah, I got a social pragmatic communication disorder diagnosis, and OCD diagnosis, and trichotillomania diagnosis, and social anxiety diagnosis, and generalized anxiety diagnosis. And that was very painful. That was really painful. And then I 6 months later found someone who has like decades of experience with adults that don't have an intellectual disability, and I got a diagnosis through that person. And I remember feeling like that was like I had like relief that I hadn't felt in years ever since that I started suspecting it.
Did that take a lot of digging to find that person?
Yeah, and it took connections, quite honestly, because at this point, I was fairly connected to people that had done people that I had connections kind of all over, because I was doing like online education work, not through my brand, but just like commenting here and there and building connections through social media. And so yeah, I had someone that knew someone
Yeah.
that told me I should reach out to. And I was really fortunate that this was a professor who at Penn State, who's doing research on autism, or doing a research experiment with autism. And part of participating in that experiment meant that you get a full evaluation to see like if you're autistic. And then if you are, you can, go on and do the experiment. So I actually, even though most people have to pay thousands of dollars for an evaluation, I was paid $50 for, which is so fortunate, so lucky. But that's how we went through the ADOS and the language testing. It's like, not like I agree with all that, but at the time I really did feel like I needed that formal diagnosis.
And then just kind of circling back to the Gestalt processing, I'm assuming that was never brought up because, as most people know that are listening, no one knew anything about it. No, it's still very hard to find a physician or neuropsychologist or developmental pediatrician that knows about Gestalt processing. So how did you come across it? Did you find Marge Blanc's book?
I found you.
Okay.
I was the 2000. I attended the 2018 ASHA conference, and you were presenting on this about assessment specifically, and that was I didn't connect that I'm a Gestalt language processor at the time, but it gave a lot of language and a kind of a methodological, like a system to break things down that I'm seeing. And I was sort of loosely breaking down in my head. Otherwise, so it was you. And then I got Marge's book. And between that and now, or maybe like 6 months to a year ago, I mean, I took some things that you had said and things from Marge's book, and I also just sort of went on things on my own, figuring out what using combination of like trial and error and also like intuition to honestly like largely agree with a lot of what your course ends up teaching. So that was nice to see. Not everything though.
We're going to talk about that today, and that's one of the reasons that Rachel wanted to come on today, because she wanted to talk about how she does therapy, how specifically how Rachel does therapy with Gestalt language processors. Quickly, I wanted to say though, my memory is shot because I think at the last interview you told me that you heard me at ASHA in 2018, but that was completely erased from my brain. So I asked you the question again. And Marge is out here in the audience, and she was supposed to be in at the 2018 ASHA presenting with us as well that year. So what I think you were kind of saying is that her natural language acquisition framework sort of put words to what you were already intuitively doing. And I've heard this from a lot of speech pathologists. There's kind of two groups I feel like out there. I hear from this one group that this is what I've been doing all along. I just didn't know what it was called. I intuitively knew I was supposed to do this. And then there's the other group. By the way, I fall into the other group, which is this did not ever occur to me, and this is completely brand new, and this is blowing my mind.
Yeah.
That's how I felt when I came across Marge's book in 2016.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that I see those two groups, and I find that the group that is like, okay, this is very, very different, and I need to completely switch how I've been doing. I mean, you have been doing this for years and years and years. I'm I think it's important to realize, like, I understand that when you are switching something, how you're practicing with language and your Gestalt language processors, switching how you're like all of what you're doing, the like prompting versus modeling, a child-led play, what exactly you're modeling, all these things. It when you first start doing that, there's a tendency, I think, to be a little scared of like doing the wrong thing, doing it the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And a perhaps over reliance on rules of what you should do and shouldn't do, and if you practice for a while, that it still like you put yourself in that other group, but you've been practicing a long time, and I'm sure are, more likely to do like a lot more trial and error and experiment with things and that
Now
sort
I
of thing.
am.
Yeah.
Now I am, but in 2016 I was not. That's
Right.
why I put myself in that other group.
Right.
So yeah, this is the heart of what I think you and I wanted to talk a little bit about today. I think what Rachel and I are seeing a lot out there is people that are learning about the NLA framework, either from my course or Marge's book, and then they're rigidly trying to implement it in therapy. And it's definitely something to talk about, because I think as a field, we've been sort of pushed into rigidity with our methodology in other areas, but this is natural language acquisition. We should be naturally modeling, and we should be listening to our gut and our intuition, right? What do you think?
No, I mean, yeah, I agree. If your intuition doesn't have that much, I mean, you're not going to have intuition though if you're just sort of I understand first kind of rigidly sticking to things. I mean, I guess I would like to say that, like, there are things that, like, you recommended, Marge recommends, that I do for the most part, but like not always.
Mhm.
Or I mean, should I give some concrete examples?
Sure. I think that what a lot of people in the audience want to hear about, so let me just give you a heads up. Someone posted a question about high schoolers specifically. So people want to
Okay.
hear exactly about how you are doing therapy and maybe some different age groups. So if you need
Yeah.
to give maybe a couple client examples, obviously no names, but clients that maybe come to mind and what that looks like for you.
Yeah. Um, so I guess I will. So with the older children, um, I I generally see two groups of kids. One group are kids that are Gestalt language processors, but didn't really have a delay in their language, and they picked everything up really quickly, and have a uh average to above average vocabulary, and like use of language, and all that, and I find that with that group of kids, where Gestalt language processing or Gestalt processing becomes relevant is more specifically regarding uh, trying to communicate own experience, trying to and in particular trying to communicate own experience of things that are that carry a lot of emotional weight. So I mean, labeling emotions, labeling their own emotions, talking about their own experiences. It's very uncommon for autistic kids to hear an autistic adult describe things in a way that or have adults describe things in a way that resonates with them. Often we just label kids' emotions, and then early on, and or their bodily feelings, and that becomes a Gestalt.
Mhm.
And then we end up with this a child might be 5 and be maybe irritated, or no, maybe let's say nervous, and the adult is like, wow, you seem really irritated right now, and then the irritated becomes a Gestalt to mean this sensation of nervousness. And so then later in life we can see that, I mean, that showing up in so many ways. Like, a kid just being like, oh, I'm just so, like, I'm irritated, and then there's this breakdown between how the child experiences things and how they're communicating things, and then the interpretation. There's so many breakdowns that
Yeah.
occur. So with the older kids who are speaking, that is a lot of what I see.
Mhm. What's the other group you
The
said?
other group, yeah, the other group is the kids that I mean, went through a like late to non-speaking ish. They might have started PEC X, and then like they didn't get anywhere with that. And then they might have started, they just were like, okay, well, parents then usually, if they don't get anywhere with PECs, the school isn't going to do anything for a robust AAC. So then parents spend money on AAC, and like they can orient to, like a category, and then know like what to, a couple things on there, but more natural language isn't there, or they're like over prompted in school and end up with all of this language that it's just they've been prompted to say. It's not natural language. It's like they've been taught something and then they're answering something. So yeah, that's the other category of kids that I see that are older.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here. I know you love that. I do this all the time to my guests. Could you give us an example of maybe what a session would look like with each group? The person who asked the high school question said, the kids that she's working with keep being talked to about the expected and unexpected behaviors, and we all know now that we should not be using that kind of language. But I think this person is kind of like, what do we do?
Okay. That's a very big question, and there are overlaps with Gestalt processing. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of a specific type of a. Okay, I have a specific example. Yes.
Okay.
It's not a high school student though.
That's
it's
fine.
an 8-year-old child that I see who is who's autistic, and he on all the like language testing scores like through the roof, and he is in a gen ed setting, but he has a one-to-one aid because because he has a history of kind of just getting up and then going to wander, or he all of a sudden like gets very angry and irritated and throws a book down, that sort of thing. And the family and the schools and outpatient OT had done a lot of the unexpected and expected, and also the like zones of regulation type of a thing. And it was it didn't really help, or it very he didn't find it, like it wasn't accessible to him sorry, you're okay, sorry, I pinned your thing, so now you're the only one up front. Okay. And I had talked to the family about like, does he use any sort of emotional vocabulary or any sort of anything, even not emotional vocabulary, but like, does he something as vague as like, it's all too much. Is he saying anything like that? And no, what it ends up being is I'm bored.
Mm,
And I'm bored from all the situations he used it in. Seems, I mean, it's a gestalt to encapsulate boredom, yes, but also a range of uncomfortable feelings.
mhm.
Um, and there was one particular session where I knew he was really I knew going in he was really dysregulated. His parents had told me he had a really bad day at summer camp. Um, he had hit someone who and that's really unlike him. And so he was just really dysregulated, and I wanted to I knew that if I'm talking about this, if I'm just like, hey, let's talk about it, like let's work through this situation that just happened, he's so uncomfortable, like his rapport with me would be shot. So I need to try I need to either that session or the next session try to get at really anything. I was looking for anything that he communicated that I could expand upon in some way. At one point, and this is really, really fascinating, and I think really critical for the whole team to understand. At one point, um, I uh I'm like, I know you had a bad day today. Uh, one time when I was in middle school, I hit my mom. And he's like, why? And I didn't have a good, ideally, I would know why he had hit this person, and then I would be able to model that language. But I didn't know why. So like,
Mm,
I wasn't even sure. I think I just said like, oh, I just couldn't control it. It just happened. He didn't really seem to resonate with that. But then he started um going. Have you had students that have do you know what a paracosm is?
no.
A paracosm is this brain world. It's an imaginative inner brain world that and in this child's case, it was a Star Wars like influenced type of a brain world
Okay.
that he frequently talks about. And it it is a way for him to really to process a lot of things. So after I had said something about myself and my mom, he went into I created a movie that is that killed the most amount of people ever. And
Okay.
I'm like, oh, it killed a lot of people, huh? And he's like, yeah, like over 200,000. And then he just went into I don't recall, it was kind of fast, but into a like a battle in his paracosm that was happening. And I think that other people could would hear him saying this. I mean, I know that other people heard him talk about his paracosm. And by the way, he knows the word paracosm now. He has a word to describe it. But other people would hear him talk about this paracosm and be like, whoa, this is unexpected. This is not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about like, or if he does something that he's not supposed to and then goes into his paracosm talk, people are like, whoa, like, what are you talking about? We're not addressing how, you just sort of wandered away from class. But for him talking about this sort of a thing is the way that he is able to, that he's both processing his emotional state and his experiences and communicating his emotional state and his experiences. And so then once that became apparent, then I want to dig deeper. And right now I'm on medical leave. But when I continue seeing him, once my medical leave is over, I want to dig more into the paracosm and have him talk about it more so that the things he says can be used as gestalts to capture emotional experiences that also would require, like I talked to his parents about this and his parents get it, but that would also require educating the team on when he starts just talking about his paracosm out of the blue, we need to pay attention to how emotive that content is. We need to pay attention to like what does it mean beyond that like literalness.
I love that example. I feel like I have a million questions, but I'm looking at the time and other people have put questions here. So just a couple of things I want to say about that. So I think there's a lot of pressure right now in the schools to get all kids to get along and to socialize. And if somebody is doing something that seems quote unquote unexpected, we got to get them back on track so they can be like their peers. So I wish everyone had the same knowledge that you do, but I'm going to guess that 9.9 out of 10 school professionals have no idea that some kids have paracosms and that's what they're talking about. So what advice would you give the typical school professional?
I haven't yet talked to his team about it because this all sort of happened and this kind of realization about just how important his paracosm is happened in like late August, September, and then I went on medical leave in the beginning of October. But one, I would read the room because some professionals are some professionals I know wouldn't buy into it. Would be like that, would say that doesn't make any sense. How am I supposed to interpret what he's saying then, and kind of validate or not label what he's doing or not doing, but like kind of get into his paracosm with him. I don't think some teachers would buy into that. Luckily, his team, when I met with them in a prior meeting, seemed really really open to shifting to shifting their perspective. So I mean, I would probably be honest and, you know, just describe, maybe not in as much detail, but describe, hey, something that I noticed. Here's what I think is happening. In the next session, I'm going to try doing blank. I'll keep you updated to kind of show them that like they're valued, they're important. I'm going to keep them in the loop on things, and then afterwards be like, whoa, I'm so glad to see that so and so happened. He was able to, we had you know, I would report what happened, like a breakthrough or whatever, and then give you know, my either straight up give my recommendations, or I would do the whole like, what do you think that this could really mean? How can we use this information? Have any ideas? Which might seem condescending depending on my tone. Yeah, it depends on it. Luckily his team is pretty good, so yeah, if it was a team that wasn't buying it, then that's a very difficult situation.
I feel like the situation I keep running into a lot is the majority of school professionals want to do better and want to know better and want to connect with the kids, but they just simply don't understand or don't have the tools. And the school day is running so fast that when they see curriculum like social thinking and zones of regulation and saying something simple like that's expected or that's not expected, that feels good to them. That's something that they can do in the moment. But what you're proposing right now, which we really should be doing, is digging deeper into the individual child. I just feel like it's a really big problem in the schools because most people can't do that.
Yeah. And yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. It is, and if you do that, if you are that professional who does that, it means that you care so much and you're exerting so much energy to do all of this, and then really go into burnout in this field. And I mean, honestly, I feel like these are problems that ASHA has a lot of responsibility to help with. And they're not helping. So this kind of goes beyond Gestalt language processing and autism. This goes into ASHA's roles and responsibilities and the power, or perhaps the power they have, or perhaps a lack of power that they have, that we have been fooled into thinking that they have so much power.
So someone just asked, what are some things ASHA can do differently to help? I'll just chime in and say, I think that you can give more of yourself when your caseload is smaller. And that's why I'm a huge fan of private practice. I am less likely to get burned out with a smaller caseload where I'm able to invest in families and individual children. What else do you think they can do, Rachel?
I mean, caseload caps are huge. Hold on, I had a thought and then I lost it. Well, I mean, something that I I see a lot of in my older kids who are speaking, and the parents come to me with concerns regarding, like, the child comes home and is an anxious mess, and then the schools say, like, well, we can't they're all of their testing is normal, and so there's nothing going on, so we can't really do anything. One, I think that in that case, the the honestly, I don't necessarily care if it is the speech pathologist, if it is the OT, or if it's the mental health professional who is working through the understanding the child and labeling the child, being able to describe their own experiences. Whoever has the most knowledge really should be put in that position.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think ASHA can really do anything about that. However, that problem of, like, okay, let's say you have an SLP who really does know a lot about this, and an OT who is willing to learn, and they want to work together or separately or something like that, and then the scores are normal. I think it's there's not necessarily guidelines that I'm seeing from ASHA on, like, what you do in that situation. I think that in terms of, like, keeping data, a good way to try to get services, if you think that it's really going to help in the schools, is through the school's point of view, is that we work on academics. This doesn't have any academic bearing. And then, you have to.
You want to go to the bouncy castle?
Okay, sorry, I muted that person. Go ahead.
What was I gonna say?
You were saying schools
yeah.
academic.
Yeah, and so then, of course, you point out that it's academic functioning is not all of what's in the IDEA, and it extends to socio-emotional well-being. And then the argument becomes, okay, well, they seem fine at school, and so then you need to provide data that something at school is directly impacting function. There's something directly at school that's impacting the child's function out of school, so therefore it becomes a school issue. How do you do that? Well, have the parents take data on Sunday evenings, if they, what they're report, what they see the child doing, or over breaks, as the break is ending, if you see more and more anxiety forming, or keep data on I mean, there's likely, if the kid is doing fine in school but struggling mentally, you can probably find some sort of pattern within the actual academics themselves, whether it's a shift from 100% to like 85% on testing. I think we need to get creative with it, with our data, in order to get those kids help, but that help needs to be from those that understand how to help autistic people in this way, autistic kids in this specific way, because if they don't, then if they get, okay, we've shown that they have social anxiety, okay, and that's impacting function at home and it's stemming from the schools. Okay, let's just put them in a social skills group where neurotypical things are the right thing. That's not good. So there's so many factors here.
Our system is broken. but thank you for all of that. Do you have like 5 or 10 more minutes, Rachel? Can we
Yeah.
over? Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Because a bunch of questions have popped up that I think you can kind of fly through a couple of these quickly. So someone had asked, how can they find out more about your bonus module on Gestalt cognitive processing? Everyone, it's in the course. If you want to go check that out, it's in the bonus module section. They're wondering though, can you recommend other resources to help them understand this process? I know the answer to this, but I want you to tell everyone out loud. They're saying podcasts, Instagram, books. What else can you recommend? There is a reason, people, that I had Rachel do this bonus module. Rachel, go ahead and tell us. Basically, there's not a lot out there.
Yeah, there isn't. Yeah, there isn't a lot out there. I mean, how I came to know about it is I had a client who every night before bed was having like a really hard time at a specific time, and the parents were just really having so much difficulty. They had no idea what to do, and I'd look at like such a range of factors, and I'm like, nothing here seems to really feel right, seems to click. And I reached out to Amy Laurent, and she had mentioned, well, okay, so their Gestalt processor, try and there's a Gestalt cognitive processor, why don't you try changing things up? And I'm like, I never heard the term Gestalt cognitive processor. And then I later asked Amy, like, hey, more resources on that. And she didn't respond, likely because there's not resources on that. And she had probably learned about it from her work with Dr. Prezant. So there's like one paper by Dr. Prezant that I read through, and it clicks. It's old. It's, I think, is published in the 70s, where he describes episodic memory versus semantic memory, and similar to how Gestalt language processors go from these longer gestalts to then like mitigating the words, to mitigating it to make self-generated language. They also go from perceiving or interpreting a situation as being that situation is defined by these specific things occurring here, the episodes. And then we have to show, we have to model, well, he didn't say this, but I put together that, and Amy helped, like, we have to model all the different ways that particular routine or situation can be in order to help these kids become more, they conceptualize events as like a variety of ways now. And ultimately that leads to more natural flexibility, not like a forced flexibility, not like okay, I'm gonna, a lot of speech therapists I've seen try to like problem solve, have the kid work with the kid to problem solve how they're going to be more flexible. And I think that can sometimes create pressure and anxiety. And I'm not saying that all inflexibility is rooted in Gestalt cognitive processing, but I think a lot of it is. And then there's, you know, the compounding of like sensory needs and social anxiety and all those things too. So there's not great resources on it. I have
research
or research on it. I have like a good, I captured on video one example of me actually doing what I do, doing the like change it all up. That I don't know, maybe I'm not really sure what to do with that video. Maybe you and I can do something with it. But I mean, yeah, I don't like to make huge absolute claims, but I've also, once I've identified this is the issue, I've never had changing it all up completely not help.
And you have some fan mail here of somebody that basically is saying the same thing. So Sherry writes, it worked for one of my clients. I went back and watched the module again because my client was having a meltdown every session. I talked with mom about this and we changed everything, new room, new snack, new activities, and he had 3 great sessions after we did this. So for those of you listening that don't know about Rachel's change it up method, you need to go watch her bonus module on Gestalt cognitive processing. Okay, so we probably have 5 minutes left, Rachel. So I want to talk about paracosms. I think you blew everyone's mind today.
Oh, wow.
Just a quick note from Marge Blanc. She says, Rachel, this is my opportunity to say you gave me a word for what I have always experienced with older clients. What has helped Bevan, whose real name is Benjamin, finding acceptance with his paracosms is to step out of them and comment directly. So Benjamin's video you've probably seen, I was hungry all the time, is what he was saying in there, is step out momentarily and narrate and say, I'm okay, etc. Okay, so the question that I want you to answer in our last 5 minutes is, where can we learn more about paracosms? And how did you come to learn about that?
So I don't have a paracosm. I only knew about it because I have an autistic SLP friend that does have a paracosm.
Okay.
And she like shares, she has a Pinterest where she has like categories of like all the characters, and then she pins certain things that match with the aesthetics of each of the characters. And she shared that with me, and that's how I learned about paracosms. And then, you know, I looked on Wikipedia about paracosms. Honestly, and then once with this child, he was talking about like kind of just going on about his particular world, his brain world, I was able to identify, okay, this is a paracosm, this is what it is. And I know from talking to my friend that this is a something that brings a lot of joy, and it's also a method of self-expression in a very particular way. So I'm not an expert on paracosms. I don't have one, so I can't speak to the personal experience of it. And I might have had kids that have other kids that have had paracosms. If they did, it wasn't as no, I think I have another kid that I see that has a kind of a Kirby based paracosm, but yeah, I'm not an expert on them, so I guess like learn like Wikipedia, you can get an idea of what it's like.
Okay, so this is going to make me sound so old, but when you're talking about this, I'm thinking about something like The Sims, and I am not a computer or video game person, so I only know what I know from other people, but like where you're creating your own characters in your own world. Yeah, does that
sound it's a like this particular child has like all of these drawings of like this vast world, and for him it's a reality in a sense. It just clicks and makes sense. So then when people don't understand his paracosm, it's very dysregulating to him. Yeah, it has all these drawings, and there he has like a unit of measurement to like map like how many miles each things are, and then all the different types of droids and the numbers of droids, and then there's different islands, and then there's like a bridge, and like it is it's different from like a child saying, I'm going to create an imaginary thing that I guess you would do in Sims, where you create something that you're well aware of is imaginary. This is something that feels very real.
Okay.
To not to say that they think of it as being like a literal thing in front of them, but it feels real in an emotional way.
Do you think that they're created to help with emotional regulation? Like, why do you think some autistic people have paracosms and others don't?
That's a great question.
And I know
I think that it's a way to take a special interest and reconceptualize it in a way that helps with emotional processing and emotional regulation. Like my friend, hers is like a Star Trek based paracosm, and she has all sorts of different characters of different personalities, and they have different relationships with each other, and with her, like finding different pictures and aesthetics that just seem to fit the vibe of each character, and then in Pinterest you like put it in different categories. That's really regulatory. But honestly, I I need to talk to her about it, and maybe, you know, she's done presentations
Maybe I
in
can
her.
have her on.
Yeah, I know,
Let's
right? Talk
talk
about
after this.
paracosms. I
Yeah.
mean, I can try talking to her and kind of seeing if she, you know, she's the only person who's told me that she has a paracosm. I suspect other autistic people I'm friends with do, but just like haven't shared it. She and
Mhm.
I are really, really close. And so it's like something vulnerable
Yeah.
that she
And
shared
she
with
may not
me.
want to share it publicly. I totally get
Right.
that. So yeah,
Right.
talk to her and see, because I think that she could come on and blow people's minds like you just did today. I am so thankful for you coming on today, Rachel. It's like I need to have you on every month, because every time you come on, you just give us new info that we all need to hear. So once again, if you have not seen Rachel's module, please go check it out on Gestalt Cognitive Processing. Rachel also sells a course with Learn, Play, Thrive on neurodiversity affirming goal writing. She also had an amazing presentation in the SLP Summit. And tell me, are you presenting in the OT Summit too with Learn, Play, Thrive? Okay, great. So that's coming up in January too. And then what is your website where everyone can find you?
Just DorseySLP.com.
Okay.
Just a note to people, I'm not accepting new clients or consultations right now because I am on medical leave. But so contact, if you want to contact me, January would be better.
Okay, great. And we really appreciate you coming on, because I know that you're on leave right now. So thank you so much, Rachel. And I hope everyone has a great weekend. I will have this video up this weekend if you would like to share with anyone who is not in the course. It will be on our YouTube channel. Thank you,
All right.
everyone.
Thank you so